We're not saying No, Andrea, I'm not gonna let you do that.
Go ahead,
Andrea. I'm not gonna let you make it seem like Caitlin Clark was averaging 5 points a game. At the time, she was still averaging 16 points a game, which was more than a lot of other guards that made the team. So don't do that. Don't make it seem like she was averaging 5 points and this was like a hand.
What if I told you that the most talked about athlete in recent sports history is considering walking away from it all, not retiring, but simply taking her talents to another continent, leaving an entire league and a multi-billion-dollar sports network in a state of pure panic? This isn't a hypothetical scenario. Right now, rumors are swirling that Indiana Fever rookie sensation Caitlin Clark is exploring opportunities to play in Europe, and the reaction from ESPN has been nothing short of complete and total meltdown.
Where all the people that she not gonna do that? Let her cook. I want to know what y'all think.
This is the same network that spent the entire WNBA season devaluing her, criticizing her, and placing her in the shadow of her peers. So why are they so terrified of losing someone they claim wasn't living up to the hype?
Versus Caitlin Clark. And that is just absolutely false. It is unfair to the women that have been there building this league to this moment so that Caitlin Clark's popularity could take it.
The story of how ESPN potentially fumbled its biggest star is a shocking tale of bias, hypocrisy, and a lesson in what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. Stick around, because the details of this unfolding drama will change the way you see sports media forever. And before we dive deeper, if you're fascinated by the real stories behind the headlines, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps us bring you more content like this. When Caitlin Clark was drafted first overall by the Indiana Fever, it wasn't just a sports story, it was a cultural moment. Coming off a record-shattering college career at Iowa, where she became the all-time leading scorer in NCAA basketball, men's or women's, the hype was astronomical. And she didn't just meet the hype, she multiplied it.
Being petty. Stop being catty, because she like a double-edged sword. She couldn't tell left and right. And it's bothering y'all, and I see it. Let's go, Caitlin. Hey, do me a favor, CC. Send your favorite uncle a jersey with your autograph.
Almost instantly, the Caitlin Clark effect was quantified in stunning metrics. WNBA draft viewership exploded, shattering previous records. Regular season games featuring her team saw ratings skyrocket by over 180%. Ticket prices for Fever games went through the roof, with demand increasing by nearly 100% in some markets. Arenas that were once half empty were suddenly selling out, filled with fans, many of them young children wearing number 22 jerseys. She was, by every measurable standard, the single greatest influx of interest the WNBA had ever experienced.
Viewership, which is up 400% to 40%. Between ticket sales, which is up 93% to 16%. Between regular game viewership, which is up 180% to 20%. What Caitlin Clark has done is grown the WNBA exponentially. She did in 5 weeks what would have taken 5 years. And as it pertains to draft viewership, she did
in a matter of weeks, she accomplished what league executives have been trying to do for 5 years. She wasn't just a player, she was a phenomenon, and ESPN was positioned to be the primary broadcaster to ride this wave of unprecedented popularity. But then, something strange started to happen. As the WNBA season tipped off, the tone from certain corners of the ESPN universe began to shift.
Right. That's what we're saying. You
no,
were right.
Molly, you did not say that, Molly. No,
That's what you said.
That's not what you said, Molly.
What are you guys?
Instead of celebrating the rookie who was bringing in millions of new eyes, a narrative of dismissal and devaluation began to take root. Analysts like Molly Karam and Monica McNutt became central figures in this new, critical storyline. The conversation quickly moved away from Clark's historic impact and toward why she was somehow a problem. We began to hear a recurring theme, that the immense focus on Clark was somehow disrespectful to the veterans who had built the league. In one particularly jarring moment, the discourse around Clark was framed as making a mockery of the sport.
For the WNBA to make voting not anonymous, because if you were the person that had that one vote, you should just be able to stand on it, and we should know who you are. In the NBA, voting is not anonymous. Yeah. So I would love for the WNBA to make the voting so we see who put the votes where.
The implication was clear. This rookie, with all her fame, was somehow disrespecting the game that had been built by the veterans who came before her. It was a bizarre take, considering Clark had repeatedly expressed her reverence for those same legends, often naming players like Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird as her inspirations. The message being sent to viewers was confusing. Here was a player generating more positive attention for women's basketball than anyone in history, and she was being scolded for it. This created a frustrating paradox for fans. They were told to support the WNBA, but when a player arrived who actually got them to watch, the coverage suggested that admiring her too much was a slight against the rest of the league.
Lots of folks that don't think she is praised enough and she is above reproach in terms of criticism, or that praising another player is an affront to her is like, whoa, bro. Like, also, like, you're not mentioned talking about women's basketball. I've never ever seen you before in my life.
This narrative wasn't just confined to one segment. It became a persistent undercurrent, a constant need to contextualize her success with a reminder that others deserve credit too, often at the direct expense of celebrating her individual moments. This was the beginning of a pattern that would define her entire rookie year, setting the stage for a growing disconnect between the network's narrative and reality of what fans were witnessing. Perhaps the most persistent and puzzling narrative ESPN pushed was a direct comparison between Caitlin Clark and fellow rookie Angel Reese.
Have 2 All-Stars in their starting lineup. They also have the reigning Rookie of the Year. Chicago has none of that. So the lift for Angel Reese.
Now, Angel Reese is a fantastic talent in her own right, a champion from LSU with a bright future and a charismatic playing style that commands attention. But the network's coverage often framed it as a zero-sum game. For Reese to succeed, Clark had to be failing. Analysts repeatedly suggested that Reese was having a superior rookie season, a claim that often seemed to ignore the raw statistics and the context of their respective roles. While Reese was putting up strong numbers, particularly in rebounding, Caitlin Clark was putting together one of the most statistically dominant rookie seasons the league had ever witnessed.
Her stats are today, 20 points, 8.4 assists, 6 rebounds.
That's crazy.
But 5.6 turnovers.
Hell of a number.
Those are hell of a numbers.
But to me, that's
She was flirting with averages that no first-year player had ever achieved, all while being the primary ball handler and offensive engine for her team. The focus, however, was frequently shifted to Clark's turnover numbers, framing them as a fatal flaw, while downplaying the fact that such numbers are common for star guards who have the ball in their hands every single possession and are tasked with creating the entire offense. This forced rivalry created a toxic atmosphere among fan bases and felt like a deliberate attempt to cut Clark down to size, to suggest that the hype was just that, hype, and not backed up by genuine, elite performance.
Watch WNBA finals game ever. You know why? Because I've been telling you about the Caitlin Clark impact. It's nice to see something other than Caitlin Clark having a profound.
The discourse often overlooked the fundamental differences in their positions and responsibilities. Clark, as a point guard, was judged on a different set of criteria than Reese, a forward, by constantly comparing them as if they were direct equivalents. The analysis became oversimplified and missed the nuance of how both players were uniquely valuable to their teams and the league's growth as a whole. The criticism from the broadcast booth was one thing, but what was happening on the court was something else entirely. From her very first game, it was evident that Caitlin Clark was a marked woman. Defenses were physical with her to an extreme degree, a phenomenon that veteran sports analysts noted was unusual for a rookie. Hard fouls, cheap shots, and a level of physicality that went beyond typical competitive play became a weekly occurrence. At one point, she was even photographed with black eye, a visible testament to the punishment she was absorbing. The stats backed up the eye test. She finished the season as the most fouled player in the entire WNBA, a stark data point that confirmed the aggressive strategies being used against her. Yet, when this issue was brought up, some ESPN analysts seemed to dismiss it or quickly change the subject. The notion that Clark was being specifically targeted by veteran players who wanted to humble the new star was treated as a conspiracy theory by her fans, or worse, as something she simply had to endure without complaint. This refusal to acknowledge the obvious created a deep sense of frustration among her growing fan base. It felt like the network was gaslighting its audience, asking them to ignore what they were seeing with their own eyes. How could they claim to be covering the game objectively, while willfully overlooking one of the biggest storylines of the season? This disconnect became a central point of contention, making many wonder if there was an unwillingness to address the less glamorous side of the league's reception to its newest star, for fear of criticizing the established veterans or disrupting a preferred narrative of universal harmony. Amidst the sea of criticism, there were a few powerful voices at ESPN who consistently pushed back, providing a counter-narrative that resonated with many viewers. Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp used their massive platforms to defend Caitlin Clark and call out the unfair treatment. They believed she was receiving. Smith, in particular, was vocal about the petty and catty behavior he observed from within the league and the media, urging people to simply appreciate her talent. He repeatedly highlighted the Caitlin Clark effect, pointing to the staggering ratings and revenue she generated as undeniable proof of her value to the sports ecosystem. He argued that the scrutiny and targeting were excessive, and that she had already proven herself as one of the game's premier talents, deserving of respect rather than constant nitpicking. Shannon Sharpe also came to her defense, questioning the motives of those who seemed intent on tearing her down and highlighting the statistical brilliance of her rookie campaign. These defenses were crucial because they represented a significant crack in the monolithic narrative. They showed that not everyone at the network was blind to what was happening, and that seasoned sports commentators saw the situation for what it was, an unprecedented talent facing an unprecedented level of initial resistance. However, their support also seemed to highlight the internal divide at ESPN. For every Stephen A. Smith praising Clark on a show, there seemed to be another analyst on a different program ready to minimize her accomplishments the moment she left the screen, creating a confusing and often contradictory experience for the audience. Through all the noise, the criticism, the physical toll, Caitlin Clark had one powerful tool at her disposal: her performance. While the talking heads were debating her merits, she was quietly putting together a rookie season for the ages, a campaign that would be remembered as one of the most impactful in professional basketball history. The stats were simply undeniable, averaging around 20 points, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds per game. These weren't just good numbers for a rookie. They were all-star level numbers, period, placing her in an elite category of players who could score and facilitate at a historic rate. She led the Indiana Fever, a team that had been a league basement dweller for years, to a playoff berth, dramatically accelerating the franchise's rebuild. She hit clutch shots, she broke rookie assist records, and she demonstrated a poise and basketball IQ that belied her age, reading defenses like a seasoned veteran. This was her silent rebuttal. She didn't need to clap back in press conferences or engage in social media wars. Her game did all the talking. Every no-look pass, every deep three-pointer, every double-double was a statement. She was proving night in and night out that she wasn't just a media creation or a marketing tool. She was a bona fide superstar, and her on-court production was the one thing her detractors couldn't argue with. The proof was in the box score and the win column, a tangible record of excellence that began to outweigh the subjective criticism. And then the rumor hit. Reports began to surface that Caitlin Clark was considering spending her off-season, or even longer, playing professionally in Europe. The reaction was instantaneous and seismic, sending shockwaves through the sports media landscape. The same ESPN that had spent months questioning her game, her impact, and her place in the league was now facing the very real possibility of a future without her. The panic was palpable across their programming. The narrative shifted almost overnight. Where there was once criticism, there was now praise. Where there was once dismissal, there was now concern about the league's ability to retain its brightest star. It was a stunning reversal that exposed the network's true position and their underlying dependency on her as a content driver. They had built countless segments, debate shows, and commentary pieces around Caitlin Clark. Love her or hate her, she was the engine of their WNBA coverage, the one player who guaranteed audience engagement. The potential of her leaving for Europe wasn't just a sports story. It was a direct threat to their content pipeline and their bottom line. This was the moment of karma that fans had been anticipating. The very star they had tried to humble was now holding all the leverage, and the realization was dawning on them. They had fundamentally misjudged the situation and taken for granted the very person who was making their coverage relevant to a mass audience. Let's be perfectly clear about what a Caitlin Clark departure would mean, because the data paints a very stark picture. The WNBA's historic surge in popularity in 2024 is not a fluke. It's a Caitlin Clark effect in action, a direct correlation between her arrival and every major positive metric. If she were to leave, even for a short time, the data suggests a catastrophic collapse in interest. Those TV ratings that were up 180%, they would almost certainly plummet, returning to their pre-Clark levels, as the casual fan she attracted would have less reason to tune in. The sold-out arenas across the country, the so-called Clark Effect road game sellouts, they would return to normal attendance levels, impacting gate revenue for every team in the league. The millions of new, casual fans who tuned in specifically to watch her play, they would tune out just as quickly, and the opportunity to convert them into long-term WNBA supporters would be severely damaged. For ESPN, the impact would be just as severe. What would they talk about? The network had become reliant on the drama and discourse she generated. Without Caitlin Clark as a central figure, their WNBA coverage would lose its most compelling character, its primary protagonist, and the catalyst for its most watched debates. The league and the network are now staring down a future they created, a future where their most valuable asset may no longer want to play for them, all because of a season-long campaign that often felt less like analysis and more like an attempt to tear her down. So where does this leave us? The story of Caitlin Clark's rookie year is a masterclass in resilience, but it's also a shocking expose of modern sports media and the sometimes uncomfortable process of integrating a transcendent talent into an established league. It's a cycle of hype, intentional undermining, spectacular performance, and now desperate panic. ESPN and elements within the WNBA had a golden goose, a player who could single-handedly elevate the entire sport to heights it had never seen, bringing unprecedented financial and cultural capital. Instead of fully embracing and protecting that asset, they subjected her to a level of criticism and physical scrutiny that no rookie should ever have to endure, creating a prove-it environment long after she had already proven on the court. Now, they face the ultimate consequence, a moment of reckoning where their actions are being met with potential consequences. The question is no longer whether Caitlin Clark is a star. She proved that on the court with historic numbers and a revitalized franchise. The question is whether the league and the network that covers it deserve to have her, and whether they have created an environment that is truly supportive of the generational talents that can push it forward. The reckoning is here. If they lose her, even partially to an overseas league, they have no one to blame but themselves for failing to recognize and nurture their greatest modern asset. What do you think? Should Caitlin Clark consider the move to Europe, or should she stay and continue to build her legacy in the WNBA? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this deep dive into one of sports' biggest modern dramas revealing, do us a favor and subscribe for more content that goes beyond the headlines. Thanks for watching.